Hey guys, Joshy here, BJ on GameDay, back for another episode. This week, a little bit of an interesting one. We're going to go with a Pimp My Team episode. Now, about a week or so ago, I put out the call on Facebook just to our followers, anyone who wanted to send in their team, and we'll basically, critique it, run through sort of maybe a few places where you can improve, change a few things around to become a little bit more effective. Now, unfortunately, not as big a response as I'd hoped. We only got 4 sent through. So we're going to run through those 4 and hopefully help these guys out. But I will say this, the 4 look like they're pretty seasoned players because at this time of the year, with the salary cap what it is, the teams look pretty solid. You will notice, look, as I say, these were sent through about a week ago, maybe a little bit more. Some injuries have happened, some updates have happened. So we will mention them, but we won't play on them too much because no doubt these guys, as I say, they are seasoned. It looks like it, and I'm sure they will have changed a few of those around. So any help we can do there, we'll see what we can come up with. Now, after we've gone through those Pimp My Teams, we will also run through, 10 cash cows. We wanted to have a look at cash cows. Now, on Facebook a few weeks back, I put up some money makers, but money makers in a different kind of way. Basically, guys who were going to make money, but also, score points. So we wanted to look at, that even balance. This top 10 that we're going to do on cash cows is purely about making money, turning that $9.8 million salary cap into even more with players like this, hopefully getting 4 to 5 to 6 weeks of value out of them where the price rises really hit, and then changing them up, upgrading as we improve our team. And, we see that value skyrocket. So I think it's probably a key thing that these guys, it's not essential to have all of them, but you do want to create that cash generation, but not at the expense of losing points. And I think actually Desi Creek, who won last year, he actually came out with an article not too long ago, and he said that his team at the end of last season was probably about $1 million less than most of the other teams in the top 20 to 50. So being that he looked more at a points generating basis rather than that cash generating, definitely past the midpoint of the season. So guys, we're going to kick off with the Pimp My Team. Now with the Pimp My Team, as I say, we had 4 teams sent in. So I do appreciate the guys who have reached out to us there. And we're going to run through those now and see how we can go. Now, the first team up, Andrew Somerville with utility value. Andrew, thanks very much for jumping on board here, mate, with the BJ team. Hopefully we can just have a look at your team now. And look, we see a lot of similarities here in your team with a lot that are going around on social media. And indeed with what I might have come up with as well. And no doubt Brent's got as well now. Look, the first one I've got a few concerns about are in your front row. Liam Knight. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about him playing in that lock position and Cam Murray maybe moving to an edge position. Obviously, the Bunnies, we've lost a few players there over the off-season in Sam Burgess, John Sutton. A lot of games retired there. So, Liam Knight, look, I just haven't been impressed with this guy. I'm not too sure why. He's kind of effective with the minutes that he plays from a Supercoach point of view. As you can see there, priced in the mid sort of 400s. I just think that he needs to develop a little bit more. I don't think he's got the work rate that he needs to be as effective at Supercoach as he possibly could be. So I guess what I look behind this is, what do you get out of putting Liam Knight in there? Is he going to get up to 550, 600,000? If he gets up to 550, is that enough of a price rise to then upgrade to someone else? Now, at 550,000, realistically, he's got to average that 60 average. So I just think, he might be more of a liability. I think with what you've got there on the bench, what I think, and me personally, I'd do is I'd probably take Liam Knight out and I'd upgrade him to someone maybe in that early 500s. And I'd look at downgrading Patrick Carrigan. Now, again, a young fella at the Broncos. Look, with the season-ending injury to Matt Lodge, or I guess for a lot of the season to Matt Lodge, Patrick Carrigan may benefit from a few more minutes. But I do think the one to get that starting spot will be Joe Ofahengawi. And I think what you could probably do here is change down Patrick Carrigan down to Josh Curran. Look, this guy has gone over to the Warriors. We'll be playing in the All-Stars. Look, fantastic young player. And I really, really think he can probably I guess, make some money, and that potential's more. Now, we spoke a little bit earlier, we're going to do a top 10 of our cash players, and he finds himself on that list. 216k currently. So look, you're going to save 110 there, and I really think you could probably get the same result out of him from a point of view of scoring, but possibly more cash generation. And I think you could get a more solid scorer in that sort of 500 to 550 range in the front row than you would in Liam Knight. Now, look, having a look in your back line here, your back row here, and I really, really like this back row. A little bit of a concern for me is Angus Cotton. Obviously, the Roosters have lost Latrell Mitchell. They've lost Billy Smith to injury. They tried to get Joshy Morris there, but unfortunately, Cronulla wouldn't release him with their own injury concerns. So, look, in the club challenge, played in the centres. Put it this way, at Supercoach, he's not going to be the player that we see in the second row or in the more towards the middle of the park. He's not going to make anywhere near the amount of tackles. He's not going to get anywhere near the amount of ball. Yes, he may score a try or two, but he was doing that in the second row. So, look, at this stage, and again, I think this might be one where we've made the team ahead of, the World Club Challenge and things like that. But yeah, I've really got to look at that and think he's probably got to go. Look, you've got Big Billy Kickout on the bench there, and he had a fantastic Nines tournament. The biggest problem with him over the past year or two since he emerged on the scene has been that consistency. So, look, I would probably be starting him, and maybe you could move Crichton out of the side, bring someone else in who's a semi-keeper, maybe a TPJ. You'll actually generate a little bit of cash from the front row swap if we do that, and maybe bring in a TPJ. He's probably a dynamic player, not as consistent as Crichton. So if you're after someone a little bit more consistent, maybe look elsewhere. Mate, let's jump on to your backline. And look, a little bit of an interesting one here. We've probably got to say Sammy Williams in the 6. Now, I'm not too sure if you've meant to put George. I'm going to anticipate that you have. But look, they're fairly similarly priced. Look, what Sam Williams has shown in the past, if you have thought about him, and let's just talk about him for 30 seconds, is that he really, really isn't Supercoach relevant. What he is a great little general for Canberra, and he'll run around the park well. So if George Williams doesn't perform since he's come over here, Sam Williams will definitely step in and do the job that we've seen him do in the past. Look, in the back line there, obviously we've spoken about injuries that have come up, and Bradman Best is one. He's out for a good sort of 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the severity of his fractured foot, how long that takes to heal. So he'll just be a wait and see. No doubt he'll force himself back into that night squad eventually. What I do have my concerns there, though, is whoever does get the spot, if they start performing, how does he get back in? Because he's definitely not a proven player. Tommy Talau on the bench there, mate. Look, yeah, he's probably another one that I'd look at maybe moving along. Purely because it looks like that job at West Tigers won't happen. So he is nice and cheap, but you may have to find someone else there in that lower price range to get there. Interesting one in Moses Sully. He was in my original team just with a few drafts and things like that, but I've since moved him on as well. Mate, let's move over to the second team analysis, and we're going to look at Ben Brock's team. Now, Ben just commented his team on their Facebook post. So thanks very much, Benny, for putting this one in. Again, very, very similar. You've got the Appy Coruscant and Blake Brayley combination there at the top. Payne Haas in there as well. Very, very nice with Marty Tapau. Now, Marty Tapau looks like he'll have a lot of the hard yards to do at Manly early on in the season, and they do have a tough run early, so he's going to have to really step up. The likes of Adam Fanua-Blake and Jake Trbojevic, very, very in doubt for the start of the season. So, very good one to look at there. Now, I just wanted to have a look at your back row here. Now, very, very solid up until you get to two of your reserves. Now, Billy Magoo, I've spoken about him. I'm a Sharkies fan. The potential is there to definitely make money. The potential is there. What I saw in the trial against Canterbury didn't really impress me too much. So, yeah, look, I just don't think Magoo will have the effect that a lot of people are hoping. He looks a little bit slow. He doesn't look to have that creativity and attack as much as people may think. So I think at the NRL level, he might be found out just that little bit. Look, Luciano Leilua, I don't want to say this is a bad pick because it's definitely a pod. This time of year, it's always interesting to see the teams that come out because a lot of those core players are the same. A lot of those cheapies are the same. It's really that filler in between that makes a team good or great or sort of, poor. So, obviously, Luciano Leilua signed with the Tigers. Joey Leilua's brother's gone there as well. I'm just finding it a little bit hard to think about what kind of role Leilua will play, how many minutes he'll get, whether he's fit enough to play more minutes. He's shown that he can be effective, that he is damaging in attack. So these are all things that are good for Supercoach, and we know that the West Tigers play a very expansive game of football with a lot of good attack there. So, look, my only concern with him is the amount of money you've got to spend on him at about 420 or 440k, whether that can be spent better elsewhere and a downgrade can happen. So definitely not about fixing him, just querying whether he's the right player to have in the team at this time. Obviously, if he starts to hit form, a lot more people will get him in. So you've just got to, this is one of those punts where you just got to hope that it pays off. Because if it doesn't, you could see that being a tough one as the money could be spent better elsewhere. Mate, let's move to your backline, Benny. And look, the interesting one here, Cooper Johns, backup halfback. Now, I'm not too sure whether this is just a money thing because I noticed that you've gone very, very cheap through, I guess, your centre wingers as well as him in the 5'8". And again, this may be the effect that having Luciano Leilua on that bench there has had. I think there's probably no one else at that 170k range in the halves that we can really look at. Cooper Johns is not going to get a start anytime soon. Obviously, you've got two very, very solid halves there in Jerome Hughes and Cameron Munster. Harry Grant's waiting in the wings. Brendan Smith's there. Now, these guys are definite backup nine. So, look, if injury strikes to any one of those halves, I'm sure Cam Smith will play in the halves and one of those guys will come onto the bench. So he's probably just a bit of a filler there, but I definitely think he'll be an NPR in Cooper Johns. Similar thing with Hopewadi there on your bench. Now, we obviously spoke about Bradman Best in the previous team. Probably the same thing there. Albert Hopewadi, probably another one that's not going to get a start anytime soon. Injury is still a concern, but also is a concern is that there are just other guys there in front of him. I think another season or two, and he may find his way into the 17. But we'll just have to wait for that to happen. Now, one that I'm really, really not a fan of is Adam Dewey. Look, when he sort of came onto the scene for Lebanon, and he sort of made his way into that South Sydney side, and now he's over at the West Tigers. I just haven't seen enough from him to say he's a brilliant footballer. And that's what you need in Supercoach. And, for a Supercoach point of view, you don't have to be a good footballer to score points. But what you do have to be is effective in the way we score Supercoach. Now, look, I just don't think that he is. You look at his averages last year with South. I think maybe even Corey Thompson is still ahead of him in the fullback position at West Tigers. I think, and even if Dewey does start the season, I think Thompson might find himself there eventually. Mate, let's move on to the next team. Now, look, thanks very much to these guys. Shane Foote and Sam Foote, husband and wife team. Shano's actually got the wife to tune into a few BJ episodes, so I do appreciate that, guys. And welcome to the league. Guys, just so that you know, we're going to bring up the what do you call it? The public league code. We're going to bring up the public league code in this episode, the BJ and GameDay All-In League, and that'll come up after the first couple of cheapies. So if Sam wants to jump in that, obviously, Shano, we've brought you into the Invitational League because you've been very, very keen, mate, so we do appreciate that. Maybe if Sam wants to jump into the All-In League, she can check that out. So we're just going to run through their two teams first. And Sam's will be up first. Now, this is probably the other hooker combination that we're seeing in Damien Cook and Blake Brayley. Look, Blake Brayley has been a little bit more effective now that we've seen, unfortunately, the ACL season-ending injury to Cam King, who was the other hooker Cronulla had vying for, I guess, minutes on the park. We can very, very much now see Blake Brayley playing, I guess, 80 minutes. Whether he can do that for a full season is going to be a very, very much a huge test. So we'll have to wait and see. But look, I love Cookie in there at 9. I just think that there's two players here in Blake Brayley and Api Coruscant to make a lot of money out of. Now, my thoughts there are eventually getting Cookie in. He's going to play Origin, so when we bring him in, it's going to be a hard decision. But I'm just hoping that Api Coruscant and Blake Brayley can make a lot of cash before we bring in Cook. So much like Ben Brock and Andrew Somerville, I've got that combination with Api and Brayley. But look, if we look here at Sam's team, now pretty solid. Look, if this is your first season playing, Shano might have given you a few tips because I like this team. There's a couple of things that I can pull out, and probably just your reserves there in the front row, Tedovano and Lindsay Collins. Again, similar to Adam Dewey, where I'm just not much of a fan of these guys from a Supercoach point of view. Tedovano has gone to the Panthers from the Roosters squad, and I'm not too sure how he's going to fit in and the minutes he's going to play. So if you can get that starting position, still, I just don't think he's effective enough to really make a lot of cash. 310,000, he might find his way to sort of 380, 400, maybe a little bit more, but it's just not enough. If you really, if you got a bottom, bargain basement cheapie, 170k, 200k, 220k. If these guys make sort of 100, 150, 200k, then you can sort of make it worth it. But when you're spending in that sort of 300 to 400 range to start with, you've really got to see that effectiveness quickly. And I'm just not sure that Tedovano can produce that. So they're two guys that I'd maybe have a look at changing to. As I say, I'm a big fan of Josh Curran. I think he's going to get plenty of time at the Warriors. Obviously, Bunny Afoa has got a very, very long-term injury there as well. So he might see himself promoted up the ranks and a little bit more game time. Look, we've spoken about Magoo. Your other two reserves there on the bench with Tino, I can't say his last name, from Melbourne Storm, the biggest bloke in the league, and Tom Eisenhuth. Look, this is just about minutes. You look at blokes like Kamakamitha, guys who have gone through that Melbourne Storm. Back when Nelson Asafa Solomona was on the bench. So people who have gone through that Melbourne system, it takes a little while as a bench playing back rower to get a lot of minutes. They've got such good quality in their back rowers on the park, or they have had in previous seasons, that it's really, really hard to get Belly to give them more than sort of 20 or 25 minutes a game. So if these guys are going to be averaging sort of 18 to 20 points, let's say you're 25 minutes a game and you're a point per minute, 25 is just not going to see any price rises whatsoever. So that's where I go to the likes of Josh Curran and things like that to maybe think they're an alternative. Magoo, he's probably a little bit more upside than these other guys just because he's a bit more of a ball player. So it's not just about hit-ups or tackles. Magoo, he's fired in a few kicks in that trial that we saw against the Dogs. So he's got a bit of potential there. So a little bit more upside with him than the other two. Mate, let's move to the back line. And what have we got here for Sammy? A bit of a interesting one. Now, actually, I just wanted to mention back with the front row, I thought Tedovano, if there's an alternative to Tedovano, it may be Thomas McKaylee for the West Tigers. I thought what I saw from him last season was awesome. I think 309,000 he is. So very, very similarly priced. You could change those around rather than Tedovano. I just think McKaylee has a bit more upside. But yeah, look here in your backline, and the really, really interesting one, Scotty Drinkwater at 5'8". Look, Team List Tuesday is going to be what this is all about. If he gets anything but a starting 6 position, if he's in the centres, if he's in the wing, there's talk about them starting Valentine Holmes in this in the wing spot. I would say then Drinkwater would start at fullback, just because they're trying to, I guess, bring Valentine Holmes back a little bit slower, make sure he's fit enough. But that said, I think that'll last 2 or 3 games at most. If Drinkwater starts at fullback, yes, he'll be effective. Yes, his price will rise. But my concern is once Holmes goes to fullback, where does Drinkwater go then? Because if Clifford and Morgan are combining well and there's no injury concerns, I reckon they stick with that there. So a little bit of a caution one there. Obviously, you've spent a little bit of money in the forwards and such, but yeah, even if you were to downgrade a Tedavano to a Josh Curran, use that extra 100,000 and maybe upgrade Drinkwater to someone a little bit better in the halves. Backline here, quite interesting again. I'm loving these sort of pod teams and a few lower price or lower owned players in Isaiah Yeo and Kurt Capewell. And obviously Capewell's come to the Panthers from the Sharks. Again, it's a little bit hard to see him finding a starting position straight away or where he plays. Can play all over the park though, so that's, I guess, his curse, but also his great attribute for the team. But from a Supercoach point of view, I just think minutes-wise, we're not going to see huge minutes for Capewell. Isaiah Yeo, on the other hand, look, I'm really, really a big fan of this guy. I think his speed for a second row is awesome, but just what he's shown in the past couple of seasons is he's become a little bit injury-prone. Concussions, just things like that. So he's really, really got to be healthy. That price is awesome, though, because he can genuinely be a 550k player. So if you could get him to that, if injury came along after some good performances, you could always just straight swap up to a better player. And Jason Saab and Zach Lomax, look, they picked themselves just purely on form that we've seen in the trials and nines, and these guys will probably make a little bit of cash. Saab I'm not as confident about, but definitely loving Lomax. So, Sammy, lovely team. Really enjoy that. Let's move on to Hubbies now and just see who's got the edge or what I think maybe the bit of a better team. Look, we've seen the same hooker combination. We've seen Payne Haas. Mate, you've splashed out there in your front row combination in Payne Haas and David Clemmer. We will do our team reveal next week, and mate, I've got the same front row pairing there. It is a lot of money to spend, but I'm just hoping that the points happen with these guys and we can make money elsewhere. Look, the biggest concern here is Joshy Kerr. He's come out of that All-Stars game injured, and we've seen a few other injuries come out of that game. So interesting to see you got him starting there, mate, ahead of Billy Kickout. Obviously 233,000. Doesn't really matter where you play them. If you think they're going to score more points, then obviously starting position is best. But mate, yeah, depending on how severe the injury is, I've heard a few different reports. I'm not too sure how long he'll be out for, but from what we saw on the All-Stars and the Nines, look, this guy's got to get in the starting squad eventually. James Graham hasn't been in great form, in the past year, and his minutes will definitely go down. The Dragons have really, really, I guess, struggled for that dominance in the forward pack. Paul Vaughan's been great as always, but they do need that other enforcer up there because I just think James Graham may be on the way out, and this Josh Kerr could definitely be the player. Similar there with Eisenhuth on the bench to Sam, mate, so he's probably one that I'd look at moving on, but I'm just not too sure where you go to with that. Another one there, look, Toby Rudolph. I watched the Cronulla and Canterbury trial. Was solid. Didn't really look like an NRL impact player. Didn't really look like he'd have that. I guess in the forwards these days, you've got to be able to offload, but you've got to be able to offload effectively. Now, we've looked at point scoring and things like that, and offloads ineffective and effective. 2 or 4 points in Supercoach. Rudolph, he's definitely trying, is what I can give him, and that's probably the best thing. Is you're never going to develop if you don't try and create those new skills from nothing. It doesn't just happen overnight. And what we saw in that trial, he's popped a few passes and a few offloads that could have created some great scenarios. Unfortunately, the passes didn't stick. They were either dropped or they were bad offloads. But the potential's there. I'm just not too sure when he actually forced himself into that 17 squad for Cronulla. So, as always, guys, this time of the year, really, really hard to find those 170k cheapies. There's not this many this year. So, Team List Tuesday, we're all praying for it to come out very, very quickly. Mate, let's move on to your backline. And Look, interesting here, mate. In your fullback position, I guess this is where a bit of your money's going to get clemmer. AJ Brimson. Oh, look, I've always had that rule that you don't pick Bulldogs players. I think I've got to change it to Titans players. AJ Brimson, he hasn't shown enough. Blokes like him, Ash Taylor, these are guys that have sort of been really, really solid coming through the ranks, but unfortunately just haven't hit the headlines that they should, or developed in the players that they should. So he's definitely got that X factor. He will be a pod, but I couldn't have him personally. I really couldn't. Similar thing there, as I mentioned before, with Dewey. These are guys that I just don't think are consistently going to score enough points. The great thing is, if they play at fullback, the potential's there. It's probably one of the the highest potential position in Supercoach. We see that with Teddy, we see that with Turbo, but these guys just aren't that class. They don't have that creativity. They don't have the elusiveness. They're never going to be those kinds of players. So what you've got to hope for is maybe they can get to that sort of 60 to 70 average. 70's huge. 70's probably out of this world. So if they can get to a 60 average, then you're going to sort of make a little bit of money and hopefully trade up. Kurt, man, look, mate, I've got to say, I think he's a trap. I think he's a trap. I've had him in my team a couple of times in the past. Similar thing with Kurt Capewell, but Kurt Capewell's got more of a workload. The fact is that the guy can play everywhere on the field, and it's really to his detriment for Supercoach, because he is the perfect utility player to have on the 14. He can play 6, he can play 1, he can play a wing spot. You put him at hooker if you need to. He could probably play a lock position if you need to as well. So he can play all over the park. It just means that he's never going to find his true spot on the starting 13. And he's probably going to have to be a little bit more of, that utility player. Finally, mate, I really like Dean Farre on the bench there. I'd probably move him into the starting squad, piss Kurt Mann off altogether, and maybe bring in another cheapie. So, look, mate, I think probably Sam's got the edge over you a little bit there, mate. Just the Brimson factor. I sort of want to drop him and maybe find a little bit a better quality, maybe a Ponga, somehow get the cash to a Ponga. Obviously, Turbo and Teddy are a long way away. RTS a long way away. Maybe a Ponga and see how that goes. Or even, Zach Lomax, move him to the back and find another centre winger that's a bit cheaper as well. So, guys, that's the Pimp My Team. 4 teams. We spent a little bit longer on them than we thought we would, purely because obviously we didn't get the numbers.
There is a secret character that has been unlocked. So introducing, didn't tell you this before the show, introducing the 2020 Tunnel Snakes.
2020 Tunnel Snakes. Mate, that's the winning team.
That's the winning team.
To take it.
Especially in the forward pack there.
Listen up now. Fucking hell. All right, so let's run through this at home, folks. A little bit of a spontaneous team reveal here for Bogan. So this will become our highest rating episode, no doubt. What have we got? We got Appy and Blake Brayley. All right, that's fairly standard. You've gone with Payne Haas, which is good. Leeson Armour, which is very, very questionable. Though, mate, Bunty Afoa, his front row partner at the Warriors, has gone down injured. Leeson's going to have to step it up, maybe, mate. This is an absolute genius move, but I don't think so. Mate, this is solid. The Tunnel Snakes have obviously either been 1, listening, or 2, improving. Tamalolo, Cameron Murray, Kenny Bromwich, nice pod. We've mentioned him in a couple of episodes, very nice. Look, I don't like Victor Radley, mate. I've got to say, I don't like him, but solid enough. I just don't think he's got consistent amount of points, but I could be wrong. What's your price? I told you I can't read these.
They're for
480k.
They're for the
dual position.
Dual position, yeah.
Mate, there you go. Look at you, dual position. You have developed your ways, mate. You've done well here. This is good. All right, let's jump into the backline, mate. See what you got there. All right, what do we got? Georgie Williams starting. Right? What the hell? Wow. I tell you what, folks, at home, This is absolutely... How much cash you got left, mate? Have you used everything?
No, I've got about 350k left.
Okay, I was going to say, because I see Latrell there, but I don't see too much more massive numbers in your backline. Obviously, Tupou and Garrick are huge. I thought you'd have to have a bit of money. Who are your bench halves there, mate? This Skype screen that's coming up, I can't read those.
So, because my three Williams, Luai, and Josh Reynolds, they all have dual capability. I've went for Metcalf from the Eagles as my backup halfback, because I think Daly Cherry Evans will get injured at some point.
I've never heard of him. Who the fuck is Metcalf?
He is a rookie that they're talking up, because I thought we were doing a rookie show, so I'd done some research.
You done some... Wow. Guys and girls, you don't get this at home. This is just a special occasion. Bogan's gone against his normal... I'm going to pick the horse by the colour or the numbers or something like that. And he's actually done a little bit of research. There you go. Mate, very, very nice. Look, Joshy Reynolds, mate, a little bit of a trap, in my opinion. And with the off-season drama that he's had, I think you can probably find a better dual 5'8" half than all. What is he? He's a hooker as well or something, is he? Anyway.
Yeah, 5'8".
I know. Very interesting. Mate, Latrell, the All-Stars. Very average, mate. Very average.
Yeah.
It might take him a little bit to develop, mate. You might get him at a cheaper price, sort of 5 or 6 weeks in. If he drops to maybe 500k, I don't think we're going to see massive scores out of him straight away. But if you do, it'll be an absolute genius move, because if he pulls out 120 or 140 to begin with, that will be huge. Daniel Tupou, yeah, I like him, mate. He's always been a solid Supercoach player. Finishes off well. Ruben Garrick, huge debut season last year. Very nice. Dallin Watene-Lesniak, probably the toughest guy in football at the moment. He just hits hard, runs hard. He is a beast. Solid bench there, mate. Coates is going to get a chance to the Broncos eventually. Smith Shields at the Raiders. Look, if Curtis Scott doesn't get that starting position due to the indiscretions, he'll probably jump up and take a spot. And Bradman Best, mate, you might want to bring him in about round 6. Mm-hmm. But for now, he's not too bad there. You might be able to throw in another centre winger, mate, that's 600k and have it really, really different. Upgrade him to I don't know who else is up there. And Pappenhausen and Lomax, mate, yeah, both of those guys will make a little bit of money, which is good. So definitely ones to look out for there. Very nice. The Tunnel Snakes, 2020. Could be their year.
Here's hoping, anyway.
Here's hoping. So that's our Pimp My Team. Some really, really good teams there. Very happy with that. Obviously, Tunnel Snakes is going to be more competitive than ever. Very, very solid team there, mate. But very, very, very different approach. So always good to see. Hopefully, that'll see you up the ladder very, very early on. But, guys, we're going to jump over to 10 cash cows now. So, basically, cash cows, integral part of Supercoach. You've got to have them because you've got to make money to get the best team by the end of the season. $9.8 million does not really get you a 1,300 to 1,400 point team per week. It's good for sort of 900 to 1,000, maybe a little bit better. So, really, guys, you've got to look. We'll see the price rises in the first 3 weeks. After the 3rd week. So those first 3 weeks, no updates until after that 3rd week. But let's run through the top 10. We're going to count them down, 10 through to 9. And number 10, we've got from the Newcastle Knights in Jacob Saifidi. Now, look, didn't really factor into my top 20 that I put on Facebook. A few injuries, a few changes there. Form hasn't been as good. So I changed it around a little bit. But as I said, there was a few more expensive players in there. This, for me, is purely about cash generation and what these guys can turn into. Now, Saifidi, both the brothers, Jacob and Daniel, came onto the scene in about 2017. Really, really good players. Fijian internationals, big boys. Looked like they were probably going to find that sort of front row pairing and make it their own. Unfortunately, injuries for Jacob didn't allow that to happen. So we've seen some shoulder injuries, and then we saw that off-field incident as well around about bit more than 12 months ago, where he gave Boyd Cordener's brother Dane a bit of a hiding, but then broke his ankle or something in the same sort of scenario. So he'll find himself back in the 17 to start the season. He'll be on the bench to begin with. Now, whether he can push himself into that starting front row, he's got a few good players there in front of him, rep players and things like that. But I do think that he'll get plenty of time on the field to actually be able to prove himself. So I think he's priced around 226K. I'd probably see a projected rise up to about 370, 380,000. So if he can make that 150K early, that's what we're really after. Hopefully he gets about that sort of 40 minutes off the bench and can perform from there. Number 9, we're going to go with the Melbourne Storm recruit in the centres in Brenko Lee. Now, look, I'm just a massive fan of this guy. He's obviously got his deficiencies in defence. It's always been a problem for him. But when you're down there in that Melbourne Storm system under Craig Bellamy, your football game's just going to get better and better. Signed with the East Tigers in the Queensland Cup in the off-season, and they're obviously a direct feeder club for the Melbourne Storm. So he'll find himself in the purple colours for the Storm, and hopefully he can perform well for Supercoaches. He's currently around that 310, 320,000 mark. Look, he's been up to sort of 550 before, and I reckon we can see that kind of price rise in him again. The system down at the Storm there is just awesome. So I really see him being effective in attack, and hopefully they can help his defence along as well. So provided he can enter the season fit and force himself into that starting side. Now with Curtis Scott gone, there's the opportunity there. So I definitely think he's worthy to have a look at. Number 8, now we've mentioned him a couple of times in previous episodes. I've got him in my team at the moment, and that's Joey Tarpanay from the Canberra Raiders. 362K. I'm just tipping he's going to have another massive career year. I really think with what we saw from the Raiders last season, he wasn't as effective due to injury and things like that. I really think he can step in, learn from the likes of John Bateman, and make that centre 30 zone for the Raiders. They've obviously gone with a little bit more mobility in the front row. Your Junior Paulos, your Shannon Boyds are gone. Tarpany really, really brings that, can find the line in attack, has got a good offload. He really ticks all the boxes to make that perfect Supercoach player. He's just got to put it all together. So I think he's a chance. Now, the next one, number 7. Bit of an interesting one here because of his price to start with, in the fact that he might not make too much money, but I just think he will. And that's Ryan Pappenhausen. 510,000. I think this guy is as good as Teddy and Turbo. He's shown that. I think he's going to crest sort of 700, maybe even up to 750. So I do think that money-making wise, he's one you can jump on and just ride the wave for the whole season. What we might do now, guys, let's just jump to the code. So the BJ All-In League, as we get to number 6 on our cheapie list, the BJ on All-In League, the code is going to come up on your screen now. It is 282106. So anyone at home, jump on, guys. You've got 17 spots to fill. First in, best dressed. This will be our public league alongside the Invitational League. We will update this throughout the year. We'll create hopefully some of that new banter that we've had with our guys over the past couple of the seasons. And you guys can enjoy playing in the league with us. So jump on there, 282106. Now, number 6 is Joshy Kerr. Unfortunately, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, went down with an injury in the All-Stars game, but looked absolutely fantastic. 233K. This guy is going to force himself in as a starter. Definitely not the performances of your Payne Husses and things like that, but he's a big body, he's mobile, he showed in that All-Stars game, he's got an awesome offload, very, very good footy brain, instinct-wise, he looked great, so definitely some money there to be made. It's just a matter of when he finds himself back on the park and away from those injuries. Number 5 is Dragons teammate in Zach Lomax. Now, the goal-kicking duties, kicked absolutely beautiful in the trial. I think he kicked 5 from 7, but he kicked plenty from out wide, set up a couple of tries, was basically everywhere. So at 324,000, I think he's an absolute must-have. The fact that he's dual position, fullback, centre wing. If you don't have this guy to start with, you're going to be running behind the 8 ball. I can't imagine how he doesn't make cash. Is he a keeper? I don't think he's a keeper yet in his career, but from what I've seen, he's definitely got that ability, because if you're going to be kicking 3 or 4 goals every week, setting up a try, scoring one occasionally, the kick returns, just things like that, you will average that 50 points. So he'll at least make 120, 130k at worst case scenario, and hopefully more than that. Number 4, and our Warriors player in Joshy Curran. I really think this is going to be a huge season for Josh Curran. I think what we saw in the All-Stars, he played well. He only played about 35 minutes. Managed to score a try. Nice little line break there with the try. Was effective enough. Needs to be better. Look, I've put him fairly high up on this list, and I've rated him a little bit. Maybe his name's Josh, so he's a gun. Yeah, definitely one to watch out for and make a bit of money out of. Even if he sort of gets to maybe that 350, 400k and then just sort of plateaus a little bit, definitely some cash that you can be happy with. Number 3, no surprises here in Jerome Luai. The number 6 for the Panthers. He will get that first chance. And he is going to make some money, 257k. Get him in your team. Within a few weeks, he's going to be up to sort of 450, 500k. So Nathan Cleary obviously does plenty, but this guy is just so active. He's averaged 60 with starting positions before in 80-minute games. He will get to the same. He will make 300k. So definitely the one to watch out for. Number 2, now I'm not so certain about this in Tristan Saylor, but he's definitely shown the ability. I've just got to make sure he actually gets a spot. The Dragons have got 4 players on their wings in Saylor, Ravalawa, Pereira, and Jason Saab. Now, 4 just doesn't go into 2 spots. Lomax looks like that number 1 spot is all his. So it really needs to be a wing spot that Tristan Saylor gets. He's got to show that he's good under the high ball. He's got to show that defensively he's sound, because we know in attack he's brilliant. It's just whether he's as solid as those other players on the wing to take the spots away from them. Ravalawa had a great season last year. Pereira's been there a few seasons now and looked good. Scored 4 tries in the trial, Pereira. So, has shown his finishing hasn't had any ill effects since that bad injury that he suffered last year. So, definitely one to look out for there. And number 1 on the list, look, Blake Brayley for the Sharkies. Since the unfortunate ACL injury to Cam King in the trial match there, he's gone for the season. It really leaves it up to Blake Brayley to make that spot his own as an 80-minute hooker. Cronulla needs to sign or bring in another, 9 there. I don't think there's anyone in the current team that's NRL ready. So they signed Cam King on that basis. They'll have to find someone else, because at the end of the day, Brayley probably won't be able to play 80 minutes for the whole season and be effective at the tail end of the season. They're really going to have to manage his minutes. It may be all right to start out with, but any time after that, it's going to be a little bit of a tough one. But I do think that bodes well for him making points. He's got a little bit of more flair than Jaden, his brother, in attack. Defensively, look, he's a small body, so he'll need to, bulk up and toughen up a little bit. But he will make plenty of tackles in the centre. I'm just hoping that he can sort of average that 55 to 60, and his 200k turns into sort of 500, 550. And yeah, my tip, probably him or Josh Kerr as the top cash makers for the season. I know I had Joshy Kerr in there at number 6. That's purely because of the injury that he's going to start the season with. So hopefully he can come back very, very soon, and we'll see the jumps there. But, guys, that's it. Bogan, any more to add, mate? Any more surprises?
No more surprises this time around. I will just like to thank all the new subscribers we've got over the past few weeks. So a bit of an uptick there. Once again, share the videos around. I think I said show your dog and cat last time in one of the ones I did with Brent. So Because the YouTube algorithm's pretty shit. So we're pretty reliant on people sharing. I think most of the views we get are from people sharing on Facebook. So if people can keep doing that, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys, almost up to 250 subscribers now. Now, it's not much. And at the end of the day, we put in a lot of work and a lot of effort for something like this. So it is just that little bit of a tick of approval that we like to see. Because the more people are enjoying the content, the more effort we will put in.
And to be fair, there's only 200,000 odd Supercoach players. So even if all the Supercoach players were to subscribe, it still wouldn't be a very big channel. That being said, our goal is 0.5% of that is to get to the 1,000. So encourage all your mates at work or your buddies down at the pub and stuff like that to subscribe and get into the Supercoach, because it definitely makes watching the games a lot more exciting, especially when your team's not playing.
Absolutely, definitely. And guys, the team previews, they'll kick on. We've got the Supercoach group code up there, 218667. In the next few days, we'll probably do it maybe before Team List Tuesday. There's a little bit of talk between Brent and I and Bogan about that, which is the right way to do it. But whether we do our team reveals before then, I'm not too sure. As Brent said, once Team List Tuesday comes out, most of the teams will sort of set themselves. So I guess we have that little bit of a challenge if we do it beforehand to come up with the right team. But we'll just wait and see for that, guys. Thanks very much, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Cheers, guys. Hey, guys. Joshy here. Thanks very much for joining us for another episode of BJ on Game Day. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube for all your notifications. If you do want to follow us on Facebook, you can find us there at BJ on Game Day. And on Twitter, we're at BJ on Game Day as well. So, guys, we'd really like your support with that. Follow us so we can know you guys are enjoying the content. Thanks very much. What a lot of people have thought. Mate, can we just pause the video for a sec? I need to go have a shit, mate. For real.